And it also showed how fragile its power base was, because of, a lot of its wealth, a lot of its dominance comes from the vibranium trade. Or lack thereof. The fact that, it's that they're sort of the dwarves of the MCU, where they control the mithril. So, and I mean, that was one of the things about Rings of Power. I know I'll keep jumping around, but I did not need to see the discovery of mithril. And it's like, I don't want to know Wolverine's past. I'm stuck with it now. I don't like it. I'm still grumpy about it. There's some things I just don't want to see.
And it's like, prequels can be fun and they can serve a purpose, but not everything needs an explanation.
Well, I like what they did with the Joker's origin of at the last minute. Well, that might be how it happened.
For me, I like the three Jokers theory, because I like the idea that the Joker is not a person, it is an entity.
And
I
that's
saw
sort of what they
someone's
did with the Matt Reeves movie too, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I've seen a theory that like there's an evil wizard buried under Gotham, and like that's why the land is cursed, and that the possibility that that's also what creates the joke. Like, I'm the person who, I watched the original Star Trek series, and I know a lot of people laugh at that Jack the Ripper episode, but I really liked that concept. Like,
Oh, I like the concept of the three Jokers. The execution in the comics has been
yeah,
But
yeah.
speaking of hot mess, you bring up Star Trek. Holy
Mhm.
shit, Star Trek Discovery. Holy shit, did that show fly apart at the seams the minute Michelle Yeoh left? There's an example of a show that let its "we're going to be the gayest show on television" just override everything else, to the point that, yeah, you've got some actors who the characters I really want to like, I can't, because they have shit all to do. That is a show where they're like, we're gonna have a bunch of LGBTQ plus people and a black female lead. What are you gonna do with them? We have a bunch of LGBTQ characters and a black female lead.
That's nice. Why should I care?
Because they're LGBTQ characters and like, that is the problem with Star Trek Discovery. And I really like the actress that plays Michael on that show, and the guy who will always be Manchester Black in my mind, even when he's not Manchester Black from Supergirl. And he has a cat, and I like that. But they Michael is a different fanfic insert character for the first 3 seasons of the show. She's Spock's human sister in the first season. Then they make her Kirk for the second season of The Big Rebel, and then they make her a science officer diplomat. So, now she's the ship's doctor.
Wait, is she legit Spock's sister, or is that just a trope?
Yeah, no, that's how they started it. She was Spock's adopted. Yeah, they literally went full blown fan fiction in the
Oh
finish.
my
It was bad. I only watched it because Jason Isaacs was in it.
god.
And I seriously watched the first 2 episodes. This is a fucking Mass Effect meets Dead Space rip off. I'm not doing it. And so many people like, no, it gets better. No, it gets better. No, it gets better. And so I went back to it after about 8 months. And Michelle Yeoh as Giorgio is amazing.
Of
And there were
course.
certain really stupid, like, speculative sci-fi elements that they were dumb, but I'm like, all right, you're trying. But once Michelle Yeoh left to be awesome in movie, they they introduced Wesley Crusher 2.0. Why, after what happened with originally Wesley Crusher, they would ever go there again, I have no idea. But they did with a well, I always get confused whether the actor is non-binary or the character is non-binary, because again, they've made this character somebody who basically sees ancestors and can pull knowledge. They are literally a plural. So they, them, see, that's what I would do in science fiction. I would introduce the concept of a character that's actually like a trinity, or like a literal binary character. So no, I'm a they, but it's because I am two people. I'm not non-binary, but I am they. I am a binary. And get people used to the idea of non-standard pronouns without throwing the real world thing into
And
it.
that's something about science fiction and
Yep.
fantasy that
Yep.
is being so wasted.
Yep.
Is
One
it
step at a time. Let people understand that. And that's why I don't get why people in fandom freak out about non-standard pronouns, because they're all through sci-fi.
yeah.
You know, any character that goes, this one is this one, or they refer to themselves as we because the Borg is a collective. There are non-standard pronouns all through sci-fi. No self-respecting sci-fi fan should have a problem with non-standard pronouns. Let's face it, that's not the issue.
Also, I'm just going to say this. When Discovery first came out, I remember seeing people who were critical about Michael's name being masculine. And I'm sure it was such, oh, we're trying to be edgy. Here's the thing. As someone who has studied names and how the trends shift over time, there is actually, it's very common for masculine names to be used for women and for that to become a trend. And then the name cannot recover.
Yeah,
so like
actually,
there are Ashley, Leslie used to be a masculine name.
Shannon,
yes.
Yeah.
Shannon is a male Irish name originally.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
And so there's this thing where these masculine names will become considered feminine, but there is almost no crossover in the other direction, where the idea of a feminine name becoming masculine is extremely rare.
Because it's a loss of status.
Yeah.
It's a boost for a woman to go man.
Well, it's also interesting because in Western cultures especially, the A sound at the end is feminine.
Right.
So you see a lot of feminine names that end in the soft ah sound.
Well, and let's face it, a lot of feminine names are feminizations of biblical male names. Christina, Stephanie, Joanna. They're all feminizations of male names.
Yeah, and I actually have Indian coworkers who have told me that the ah, that soft ah, is also feminine in their naming.
Yep.
So
yeah.
Kamala.
Kamal is the
masculine form.
My name's Amazonian, so like my name's Latin American, and that's why it's like whenever the cultural appropriation arguments come out, I get very, very fucking quiet, because like, are they gonna take my name from me now? I didn't choose it. And it was really interesting living in Tennessee with my name, because they all wanted to shorten it to either Leanne or go with my full first name, middle name, Leanna Ray, because it was more common.
Was your mother expecting you to live in Tennessee with the middle name Ray?
My name, this is such a fucked up story. Maybe that's why we get along. We both have fucked up stories of our names.
I'll share mine after this. I'll show the story, not the name itself.
But my godparents, for some odd reason, had a vote in what I was named. And they wanted to name me Katrina. They were these Scottish people. And my mother didn't want to name me Katrina. And so she found a compromise name somewhere. I don't even know where she found it, but it was a compromise. And that's why it's so weird with the the Game of Thrones, the two Game of Thrones characters.
Mhm.
It's like, where the hell did he? It sounds like that's why when Gail Simone emailed me about naming a character, like basing a character on my likeness in Secret Six, I was like, Leanna's an excellent stripper name. What was my mother thinking? Now I knew what she was thinking, but that's the problem with compromising is you get unintended results. And I truly believe that names have power, and
Oh yeah.
you are defined by having a fucked up name.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's one thing we both sort of relate to.
So my real name is it's a misspelling of a Yugoslavian monstrosity. And I'm named after my biological father's favorite ex-girlfriend.
Yep.
That's all the context I have.
Yep. And I mean, it's interesting that I really respect people who pick new names for themselves.
I did for a while. I would pick different names for myself. None of them really stuck because I was in my early teens. And then I started working, and like it was just that's my legal name. So
right.
had to go with that. And the thing is, I'm not Yugoslavian. I'm not even Slavic. I am British mutt mixed with Native American and Romani.
But that's your name. Like that was the
Yes.
name you were given. That is your legal name.
Yes.
And it's funny because one of the Twitch viewers who grew up in the same neighborhood I did, we sort of have this thing of you earn names, and calling people by alternative names is part of the culture there. And so like Blazin, hey Blazin, calls me like started with Lee and then Billy.
Yes, I've seen that.
Calling me, and that's Billy Butcher from The Boys, and that's the only other name I could actually respond to because like, yeah, okay, that makes sense, and I earned that name.
And see, here's the thing: having what is essentially an ethnic name, I most recently I had a customer ask, "Oh, well, how long has your family been in this country?"
Yeah,
and I didn't think of the perfect response until later, but it's like what I should have said was probably longer than yours.
Yeah.
Because like I said, some of my family is not even family. I don't know that side of the family, but some of them are Native American. And my mother's family came over on the Mayflower.
Yeah, but I think right now there's like almost an exoticization of anything that sounds Eastern European, and we're not going to get into the reasons why.
True.
But
although I will just say the worst one I got was telling someone the origin, and she said, "Oh, you don't even have an accent."
Oh Lord.
And I'm like, I was born in San Francisco, lady.
Oh Lord. But that's what my friends who are, Canadian born Chinese, but American born Chinese get too, is they get that all the time. And it's that, you're getting a little taste of perpetual foreigner syndrome.
And that's why I've gained a huge level of sympathy for the people who are like, oh, people, my boss is Cambodian and he still won't even pronounce my name right. And like I've told him, hey, it's pronounced like this, and he's like, oh, well, I have to have a nickname for everyone. And I'm like, no, you just don't respect me enough to pronounce my name.
He might actually not be able to. One of the funniest fucking things I've ever seen was it Seth Meyers? The band The Roots. What late night show are they on? Sorry, that's not Seth Meyers. That's like Kimmel or Fallon or something like that.
I don't know. I don't watch late shows.
The episode where they were trying to pronounce Pete Buttigieg's last name because it's Maltese. And the fact that they kept getting to Booty Judge was so hilarious and perfect. And I just thought it was this beautiful moment because here's a bunch of Black guys who have, sort of that new South American accent. And so there are the soft slurred vowels. So the soft G's not there. There's certain vowel sounds that American English doesn't have that we have up here, which is why we get made fun of for saying oot and a boot. That's not what we're saying. We're not Swedish. We just have a more rounded O The OU is a different sound in Canada than just an O, as opposed to some parts of America where every vowel sound is an A.
Yeah.
As somebody who's done, some accents and dialect work, that American accent is so hard because, oh my God, all the nuance is taken out of language and it starts sounding like this because it's now I'm surrounded with sunflower, but it's all A's. Like if you want to do a convincing American accent, just turn every vowel sound into an A. That all you do, it's all A's. But it's just, but to me, those are the really cool. You're allowed to joke about that stuff in Canada in a way you can't in the US, because everything has become this sort of top down, and people want to. I've noticed some people trying to pivot from woke to critical theory, but it's not critical theory.
No,
It's
I'm
not.
I'm trying to find the right word.
Well, like I said, it is, well, it's a different situational problem, right? And that's why I like, because let's face it, the discourse, fuck, I hate that term, is a hot mess right now. And that's why I wanted to talk about this topic, because a lot of the things that people are going like, oh, whoa, go SJW, and obviously I'm using that as a quote.
Of course.
It's not a conspiracy. It's just something about it didn't come together. Like, what is it? I keep calling it The Witcher bread and circuses. Blood omen, blood. What the fuck is that show?
Blood Origin.
Blood Origin. Okay.
They made
it's a goddamn mess. The whole Witcher show is a mess.
Here's the thing. So they have wizards before the conjunction of the spheres. In fact, causing the conjunction of the spheres.
Because of course. Because how does that happen? Well, they're elves, right?
Yes, but at the same time, the conjunction of the spheres was what brought magic to the realm in the first place.
I have been trying to find out whether canonically it was, and I'm sure someone in comments can tell us, because I know there are people who have read The Witcher in the original Polish. I haven't been able to find out whether it was the conjunction of the spheres brought magic to humans or brought magic to
the realm itself.
The realm. I know it's the way they explain why there's monsters all over the place.
That's true. But for me, the big thing was they made Ciri descended from the very first Witcher.
The thing is, Ciri has been a character that just keeps getting added to and added to and added to. Even like the Witcher short stories are my Witcher. Even the books start getting really, really weird. Ciri has become this big sucking void that has created this gravity in the Witcher franchise that has pulled the whole thing down.
Can I just say the fact? So in there's the short story, The Sword of Destiny, I believe it's called, which is when Geralt and Ciri first meet.
Yep.
In Brokilon.
Yep.
The fact they cut that from the show.
People freaked, and I understand why.
And understandably, because that is a huge emotional beat in the series.
Yeah, the way they had them meet in the show was shit.
Yeah.
It wasn't that they changed it, it's they changed it to something shit.
And they also removed the context of, I forget the Queen of Brokilon's name, but the fact that even her magic couldn't do anything to Ciri, couldn't bind her to the woods because she belonged with Geralt. You lose that. And that's not anything to do with heritage. That is the magic of the surprise child, the child's surprise. But it's also just fate, and that this is a family that is forged by fate, and it's not, they don't have any choice in it. It's not, this isn't a chosen family. This is the universe binding them together.
That's interesting that you took that take on it, because my take was, with all the gruffness and with all the separation and with all the torture and with all the deadening, to me the whole Geralt, Ciri, Yennefer, Triss thing was that despite the world trying to kill the humanity in them, the humanity, just that spark of connection was more powerful than all the shit trying to take it from them. And both interpretations are valid, right? Because it
Mhm.
doesn't come down one side or another.
Although I will say, I was in back in November, I went to Barnes and Noble and I showed you a picture of this.
Mm-hmm.
There was under the
Oh, yeah.
books, there was this employee recommendation tag. And pretty much the first thing is follow Geralt, Yennefer, and Ciri as they find love and adventure. And I'm like, tell me you didn't read the
Yeah.
books without telling me you didn't read the books.
Or they didn't understand the books.
That's almost worse.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people don't understand what The Witcher is doing because it's so subtextual, right?
But
It's
it's like even
contextual and
even
it's
if you
subtextual.
even if you miss the depth of it, how do you read those books and come away with that?
You want to.
I guess.
I mean, I came away with very different things. I mean, we could do an entire topic. I don't say episode because they tend to be 2 or 3, but we could do an entire topic on why the Witcher books and the games actually end up being more feminist than the Netflix show. Because I will fight that. I argue, despite themselves,
Mhm.
the books managed to create some really fantastic female characters, and I think it was just because he wasn't trying to create fantastic female characters, he was just trying to create characters.
And people have asked Hayao Miyazaki, "Oh, how do you create such great female characters?" And he's like,
Yeah.
"I don't. I just make characters."
Yeah, unlike George R. R. Martin, that is so obsessed with embedding uh his characters in womanhood.
Mhm.
These women are just characters. They're different. They have
They're
different
people.
motivations. Yeah, and you could argue that, oh, they're still motivated by a child, but that's only one of many motivations for Yennefer.
Mhm.
Yennefer is, we were talking about Regina before, and then we talked about like Cersei and the Game of Thrones characters. She's like both, because she has her ambitions,
Mhm.
right? Clearly, and she made choices based on that. But then when this opportunity is given to her, she embraces it. And Yennefer is, I've always had an issue with the encouragement to have women define themselves by their fertility, because I've seen it wreck people who have fertility issues.
Oh, absolutely. I can speak from experience on that.
I know somebody who slowly started going crazy when the opportunity to have biological children was denied her. And as somebody who's like, the why, if you really want a kid, adopt a kid. I don't believe you love that kid any less. I have
It,
never understood that idea of blood.
for many women, there is a biological drive.
Yeah, and I'll
Um,
take your word for it because I don't fucking have it.
yeah.
It seems
Um,
like this pressure. Can we hurry up and move the clock along so I don't have to worry about this shit? Like once the window's closed, it's like whatever, it's off my plate. Because I
yeah.
don't get it. I mean, I get that it's very real, but I wonder, I mean, the biological drive aside, I think there's also social pressure.
Oh, absolutely.
Like the
There is
people
that.
who get mad at me, you would have been a good mom. It was selfish for you not to have kids. It's like
That's just stupid.
I don't talk about the number of threats I get, but I have had times where I'm like, you know what? This would be so much scarier if I had a kid or kids. All of a sudden it wouldn't be about me. It'd be about that, and I would probably have to stop doing what I do in the current environment
Mhm.
because bigger things matter. And if that was the choice in front of me, I'd do it, and I wouldn't resent the kid. But wow, I'm really glad I don't have to make that choice. And I
Yeah.
think that's what's lacking in some of these hot mess properties that we've talked about. Like, again, I want the takeaway from this stuff to be reconsider the source of the stuff that ends up not being what you hoped or ends up being different from the source material. It's more likely, and I say this, people don't believe me, and I've been part of development processes. I've actually walked away from development things of my own. I was developing a sitcom. It was basically a female Big Bang Theory for a while, but they thought they wanted me to make a foundational change that would have just broken the formula. And I said, no. And of course, when you do that, you don't get your show made.
Yeah.
And you have to make a choice. They wanted me to make a female character a gay man, which defeats the purpose of a female Big Bang Theory.
Yeah.
Not because I wanted, all female cast. No, there were men in it. I just wanted to play with the tropes. I wanted to play with, well, let's take these characters that are very similar. Now let's apply what society expects of women, and hilarity ensues.
Yeah.
You know, because the main character was somebody who was socialized on like comic books and superhero stuff, and so all the instincts were superhero stuff, and she couldn't keep a job. She was constantly getting into social conflicts with people because her attitude is, when two heroes meet for the first time, they fight. That's what we do. Women can't do that, right? They can't. That and you laugh, right? That's funny. But no way. They saw the masculine social coding and wanted to make it men, which completely defeats the purpose of the whole fucking thing. And that's really where this so-called agenda comes from. Now, there are some executives who legitimately resent what Me Too did to the industry, and they are trying to wreck it. And so there are some setup to fail moves going on. That's true. But that's not Hollywood. That's not Hollywood wanting a political agenda. That's Hollywood trying to wreck diversity. It's not the same thing. Now, I'm not saying that's what Kevin Feige is doing. Quite the opposite. I think he's a very powerful guy. And the fact that they depicted him as like this Flight of the Navigator type machine at the end of She-Hulk, I thought was so brilliant. And people were so whipped up about that show. They missed, like, my attitude with She-Hulk is they went hard on everybody else. So when they did a complete deconstruction of their own product, people would feel like, oh, wow, they just hit everybody equally. And that's why I said earlier that people don't see how people are going to read it. They didn't understand emotional reactance. That once you trip a breaker in someone, they don't hear what you do next. Now, there's no excuse for people freaking out for 10 weeks.
No, that
was a complete overreaction. And I do think that we still can't talk about it. I went on, Nerdette's stream a few weeks ago, and another guy started up about how shitty She-Hulk was. And I did the typical, like, look, say you didn't like it, that's fine. But when you say it's objectively bad, I have to check you on it, because I'm sorry, some of the dialogue was legit brilliant. That I Smash Matt Murdock line was mwah, right? That was funny. It was politically incorrect, but it was a really good turn of phrase.
Yeah.
There were legitimate laughing at pain, laughing at ridiculousness moments in that show that you cannot say it was just bad. That's an emotional reaction. And the people that say Falcon and Winter Soldier was bad, it's the same thing. There's a show that had to pull out a virus storyline in the middle of it. Right. So yeah.
Also, the fact
you come back together, but
the fact you don't like the radical terrorist villain, which I think is completely justified. The fact you don't like that doesn't make the story bad.
Well,
there's a difference.
To me, that was just an excuse for the character study of the two leads. They just had to throw shit at them to get them to do things and talk to each other, and for me to actually like Bucky's brooding. for a change. Like that's all it was. I guess because I've read so many comics, it's like, yeah, whatever, another terrorist storyline. Don't fucking care. It's US agent. All right, fine. They're recreating some splash pages, covers. Okay, awesome. I'm interested in the relationship between these two men and why Sam ends up with the shield and Bucky doesn't. That's the story. And it's a story of Sam self-selecting in, partially because Bucky tells him to, and Bucky not being able to get over the guilt of what he does. And, you know, it's a story of how neither of them are Steve Rogers. Neither of them want to adapt this mantle. I thought they did a similar thing with Wakanda Forever. They know some people are going to have trouble accepting anyone else because what's his name? Chris Evans. Chris Evans did such a great job with Steve Rogers. Like, yeah, I don't even remember him in that shitty Fantastic Four movie anymore. I have to remind myself that he played the Human Torch. He was so good as Steve Rogers that letting the sort of transition process happen and really showing that everybody was reluctant to sort of make this necessary change, I thought was really good. And people got so hung up on the nuts and bolts of the story. And I thought WandaVision was way messier, but that was people knew exactly what they were supposed to think. And there was a show you were talking about before about how the character you were supposed to sympathize with was not the character I ended up sympathizing with. I hated Wanda by the end of that show. I thought she was unaccountable, and I supported Agatha's theory that she did not deserve her power and shouldn't have it by the end of it.
Wanda is one of those situations of, okay, that explains it. It doesn't excuse it.
Well, also the fact that, I mean, she's mommy dearest, for fuck's sake. She created children out of a selfish impulse. It's that thing of a woman having kids because someone will love them, right? She had kids for the most selfish reason in the fucking world. And the fact that there was no pushback on it, there hasn't, even with Multiverse of Madness. They showed that, you know, she was bad at being a mom eventually, but they didn't deal with the inherent selfishness of, I want kids to take away my pain. I'm using these people to replace someone that I loved and lost, not because I want to love these kids for who they become. And she was doing the typical parenting mistake of trying to program your children.
And here's part of it. I think that comes back to, you know, you talked about how people in New York and California are very out of touch.
Yeah.
And I think there is a thing of, especially in wealthier circles like that, where you have a kid as an accessory, essentially.
Yeah, there's some of that. I also think that they were way over the fact that, oh, we didn't want to put Doctor Strange in because that would take away. No, it wouldn't. But they were overthinking it, and they like apparently completely redid the ending. It was just a hot mess.
I mean, from what I understand, part of redoing the ending was because of COVID restrictions.
Some of it. Yeah, they cut an episode because of that. And again, like those first 3 Disney Plus shows, WandaVision, Falcon Winter Soldier, Loki, they were all COVID shows.
Yeah.
So I am gonna give Loki season 2 a try. I might start it and not finish it. I just don't see them salvaging.
No, because the issues with that weren't COVID restrictions. The issues with that was a complete misunderstanding of terminology, mythology, and the character.
Well, and creating a female counterpart who was performed completely differently than she was written on a page. There's another example of a character who the perfect actress to play her is already in the MCU as a different character. The same way Jason Momoa is the only guy who can really play Lobo, Hannah John Kamen is the only person I can think of who can play Sylvie as written. basically her character on Killjoys, Dutch, is who Sylvie was written as.
And
Somebody, somebody who was raised on the run by
and
herself.
like here's the thing that you said, oh, the perfect person to play Lady Loki is already in the thing. I thought of Jamie Alexander because she looks like classic Lady Loki.
Well, because she's Sith. And that's who Loki looks like. That's like, okay, in the comics, he literally goes, this is what I want to look like. And he picks the girl whose hair he cut to tweak her. Right. That is Snape and Lily Evans all over again. He loves her, but he doesn't love her in the boy girl way. He loves her in the let's be sisters way.
And that's the thing. Because of the whole shape shifting and the I want to be her way, you could totally still have Jamie Alexander.
But she got really seriously hurt on that TV show she did. And that's freaking tragic. Because I bet they would have done that had, they would have done that had I liked her little cameo in Love and Thunder because they're keeping her in it, even though she just may not physically be able to do it.
Yeah, Sif deserved so much better, honestly. They needed to do it like around the time of Dark World is when they should have done a Sif and the Warriors 3 spin-off movie.
Oh, that should have been. I was hoping when they mentioned her they had her on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah.
For a bit. I was hoping they'd do the branch off, but it was just sort of a cameo. That was too bad because I did think that she did get, obviously in the myths, she's different.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's actually a good thing, more separation between the Marvel and someone's actual religion. But I also think that she is a bigger part of the comics than she became in the franchise. And I saw what Kenneth Branagh set up with her. It's just been a fuck ton of bad luck. Mm-hmm. Where that character is concerned. I did get the sense that they wanted to do more. These movies and shows are scheduling nightmares. Part of the reason Game of Thrones became such a mess is because actors wanted out. They had to give up other work because they were contracted for a season and they might have gotten 2 or 3 episodes. That's not enough to live on.
No.
And
it's very poor planning. And like that was going back to Once Upon a Time. That's part of what happened with the Ruby Red Riding Hood character.
Yeah.
Was she eventually left because she was like, look, you guys aren't giving me enough episodes, but I can't live. I need other work.
Well, that's why those shows shot in Vancouver, the main villain tends to overstay their welcome because they have to sign them for an entire season because they have to relocate.
Yeah.
Right. There's not a ton around there where they actually shoot. They have to live in Vancouver, get transport out to that one strip of forest that's in so many shows. It's the same forest in Stargate, that's in Supernatural, that's in the X-Files, that's in Legends of Tomorrow, that's in parts of Small. It's just the same forest with those fiddleheads in Vancouver. It's so funny every day. That's the mainland Vancouver. That's the mainland BC forest. Yeah, hey, shout out. But yeah, there are these behind the scenes things, and what disappoints me is that people get so hung up on the Reddit narrative, on the online conspiracy theory, that they're missing what's really going on with these shows that don't come together. Mm-hmm. And it's usually very innocent. And then what happens is the creators get very defensive because they feel like they've sold out their work, right? And so they start defending it too hard, and they're not being honest, but it's not because they're hiding some conspiracy. It's they're hiding the fact that they feel like a sellout. Because everybody wishes they fought harder for
Mm-hmm.
certain things, but you know how it is. Like you're in the process of editing Callias Chronicles right now, and you're getting to the point where I'm just I want it out. And I give you credit that you continue and you're getting it right.
Yeah, I thought I was doing a final line edit and just getting all the grammar, and I came to a point where there's these few chapters that were written at a rough time and they're so choppy. And
Oh, that's the part you're okay.
honestly, I might send you the chapters
I think I
just
know which
because
ones you're talking about.
yeah, it's the summer solstice
Yeah.
chapters about halfway through.
Yeah, you were in a different headspace there. And that again, you write something in a particular headspace and you go back and look at it and it's what you were feeling at the time, but now you're like, I'm not saying this is you, but I've done that with quite honestly some of the Solomon and Zarkazan stuff in Boss Fight.
Mm-hmm.
There was stuff I actually took out where it's like, this is therapy, not story.
Yeah. Well, part of it is there's a kind of a lore dump at
Yeah.
one point where it's talking about this history of, okay, empire fell, rise, fall. Here's why the gladiators are such a big thing.
Right.
It's just I had written it and there was a whole thing about this one particular war that happened and I cut that and had to make everything, and now I'm just like, oh, and there's some other parts about it where it's just choppy. So I might send you those chapters and just
Yeah.
ask you to read over those
Yeah, happy
in the
to.
next
And
few days.
that's the thing, right? With a novel, especially a first published novel, you have the ability to do that. With
Mm-hmm.
television, one of the things people don't understand about television is usually films don't go into production until there's a script. With sequels, no, they know they're going to do another one, get a script. That's why action sequels tend to be iffy. But with TV shows, you go into production while the scripts are still being written. And
Mm-hmm.
then you get this script where, the writer on Loki wanted to do an entire episode 3 about Sylvie, and Disney rightly said, no, not her name on the show. Go back and do it again. But you can tell he kind of lost his mind down that
Yeah.
rabbit hole. And they only have so much time where this is scheduled to come out here. We have these actors during this period,
Mm-hmm.
like we need
And
to,
you don't get reshoots in TV, not as
well,
many.
you not as many, certainly, because some of these actors, well, they're scheduled to do Richard III on the West End. If you want these, especially actors with that Shakespearean ability, they're booked.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, they really like the US money, but their heart is on the stage. And I mean, apparently Alan Rickman almost quit Harry Potter on the 6th film. He didn't want to come back. He was done. And they
Yeah.
had to find a way to, get him to come back. And this happens with everything. People get hurt. I mean, look at poor what's her name, Emilia Clarke, 2
Mm-hmm.
freaking brain aneurysms while she was making Game of Thrones. Like it happens, and sometimes things just don't come together, or sometimes things come together overall, but there are some rough patches. And apparently with She-Hulk, episode 1 was originally supposed to be much later in the
Mm-hmm.
show, which is why it's all over the place and fragmented, and the pacing is just, but they wanted to get some stuff out sooner. And I wonder if that scene with her and Bruce Banner, and that whole fight they had, or she had, and he was just sort of whatever, being adorable.
That might have hit very
It
differently.
would have hit very differently episode 5 or 6 than episode 1.
Yeah.
I think it was going to initially be longer, and they cut it back to 6.
The first season of Arrow, they had the present day storyline with Oliver Queen becoming the Arrow and going on his whole "you have failed this city"
Yeah.
quest. But and that part played out chronologically, but the time on the island played out in reverse,
It felt so
essentially.
much like Lost to me. I was like, next.
Well, I mean, it wasn't great, but at the same time, it was this mystery of, okay, what happened? How
Right,
did he end up on the
right,
island?
right, right.
And so then you see the crash, especially, happen in reverse. And then at the very end, it's revealed that Laurel's sister,
Right.
was it one of the sisters, was on his girlfriend's sister, was on the boat with
Right.
him.
Which
And
which
I
was a
think,
cheeky nod to the fact that it's a different Black Canary than most people are used to.
yes,
Yeah.
although Laurel's middle name is Dinah.
Well, because she's Black Canary 2 in the comics. Not that this matters. I'm just
No.
doing the nerd Twitch thing. Apologize.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was Sarah. It was eventually
Yes.
the
Sarah
character who is on Legends of Tomorrow.
yeah, as White Canary, I
Yeah,
believe.
and oh my god, that character started as epic shit and got so much better. Holy shit! You see her in season 1 of Legends of Tomorrow is terrible, and they fix it in season 2. It's one of the few examples of a show that starts off garbage and gets so much better.
It's also probably they were trying to figure out what to do with her beyond she's Talia al Ghul's bang maid ex-girlfriend
Well,
thing.
they had her as the Wolverine of the team
Yeah.
instead of the she ends up being kind of a Captain Kirk.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
the backdoor pilot in Arrow was she died again,
Right.
and they got Constantine to bring her back, and he was
Right.
like, she's not gonna be who you remember.
Yeah,
and I think it was Talia who was trying to bring her back. I don't remember if they used the name Talia. Like it's Ra's al Ghul's daughter.
Yeah, I dropped out of Arrow. I dropped out of Arrow so hard.
I just kind of paid attention to it on the side. But yeah, so it's like, I think if they had done the She-Hulk thing like that, where it's like the present day story is playing out chronologically, and then you have the origin playing out a bit in reverse like that.
Well, it was their original instinct, and then people panic. They probably got a note that the show started too slow. And so they panicked and overstuffed that first episode. And I guess
I look back at that first episode and I'm like, wait, was all that what? Yeah, it's overstuffed.
Yeah, it's exhausting. It was slamming on the brakes, stepping on the gas, slamming on the brakes, and I guess because I've developed television, I'm more forgiving of it's a first episode. If a first episode of a comedy can make me laugh more than 4 times, it can be rough, and I'm still like, okay, this has merit. And Tatiana Maslany is just one of anybody who's seen Orphan Black understands.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't, please watch Orphan Black. It starts slow, but her performances, because she plays a whole bunch of different characters on it.
Yeah.
You see what a chameleon she is, and she is so good in that part. She brings such a truth to it. Now, unfortunately, I think that's what fans of the comics didn't like, because she's playing the character as written, but having those lines said instead of read packs a very, very different punch.
It's also this issue that there is this very 80s and 90s view of She-Hulk. And
even the Dan Slott run, though, right?
Yeah.
Fuck Dan Slott, by the way. He blocked me. Fucker. But every time I say the Slotto blocked Tavius, you gave me people burst out laughing.
Well, I find it funny because, like, at this point, we've been going long enough that this isn't going to come out for weeks.
Oh, he'll still have me fucking blocked, or he'll unblock me and blocked him again. Fuck Dan Slott. It doesn't matter what the guy does now. Like, dude, you're making money off an IP featuring an aggressive, hot mess, snarky fucking woman, and you block my ass on Twitter, fuck you and her photocopied green ass. Right? And that's what I think happened, is that she's a hot mess in the books, but she's a hot mess written by men with that male context. They knew how to make a hot mess, aggressive, sexual woman feel safe for men. All of a sudden, we get Jen Gao and her take on the exact same woman with all the pent up frustration of Rick and Morty fandom. And all of a sudden, she's not safe. She's real. The anger all of a sudden isn't for men. It's this primal thing that women are tapping into. And it, it's very scary. It's almost like it reversed the roles, because I mean, women have a very different relationship with an angry man. We're trained to fear that, right? And I do think men got a small taste of, oh, this isn't going to be Jen in bed asking Tony why he can sleep around, but she gets called a skank. I hated that bit. That was in the Dan Slott run. I hated that bit because every fucking woman knows why she gets called a skank, and he doesn't. She doesn't have to ask him. But that's the difference between, oh, man gets to go there, instead of being on the brunt of, no, here's what you don't fucking get about being you instead of me. And that's what the She-Hulk series did. And guys, good guys I respect, were really thrown by it. And I do think that that's, even if there were some stumbles in execution, I think that's really important, because let's face it, that's what it's like to engage with media, especially nerd media, while female, or at least female performing.
Yeah.
Because, I end up constantly identifying with the male characters just because their emotional struggles and their motivations and their stories are much more things I can relate to, because any Stanley property, the woman is his wife. And I will never be that pedestaled. And I don't know if that's not a bad thing. Like, I think we need more stories where women aren't pedestaled, but they're not loser hot messes either.
Yes, please.
I'd like stories where it just sort of, and that's why I like the Matt Murdock Jen stuff. Again, I think a lot of guys don't realize that Matt Murdock is an everyman in that show, but because he's Daredevil, they don't see it. And here's a guy who was very badly abused by Elektra. That's in the Netflix show. And it's that was two people who were right for each other coming together, not let's have her bang Tony Stark. And I thought it was so good that they managed to work the sort of canonical superhero sex scene in, but found the guy who was right.
And it's a surprising pairing, but it does work.
I wouldn't have thought of it, but it's because of that Netflix background where, she was getting all the freaky step on me mommy types, right? Who ultimately, those guys are at the end of the day at the end, they're still in charge because they have no interest in her as a person. That's fetish, right? And that was the mistake her friend made, telling her to make that her dating profile, because it was quantity over quality. And well, that's what you get.
Yeah.
But he comes along and he doesn't give a shit about what she looks like. Right? Like,
no, he's now had a very, very stark experience with the hot crazy scale in Elektra.
Yeah, he is not coming into this with step on me mommy. And I mean, he's attracted to dynamic women, clearly, because he went for Elektra. But he's like, okay, she's bad crazy. Jen is good crazy. And it's two people who had shitty pasts coming together. And I hope they develop that relationship more. I hope it's not a one-off, because holy crap. When he meets that family after like a week, he's a keeper.
I mean, the one other I've mentioned, like, if they're not gonna do Jen and Matt, then I want it to be Jen and Hercules.
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
And just because I am so invested in Jen and Matt, I don't want her. I fucking love Hercules in the comics.
Yeah.
Oh my
No,
God.
I think Jen and Matt would be better. I'm just saying, if they don't do that, then what I want is Jen and Hercules, but I don't expect that I'm going to get Jen and Hercules.
I'm just so fucking stoked that we're gonna get Hercules somewhere. He's such an idiot. And you could do so many like hilarious send-ups of like, for people, Hercules is sort of the bad She-Hulk guy, only larger than life, right? He's boorish and he's an idiot and he's toxic masculinity, but he's funny about it. You know?
And I think it could be done well, especially since it looks like his story is going to be, yes, father, I'll do what you tell me, to he's going to come to Earth and have his own kind of, it won't be the same as Thor's story in the first movie, but it's kind of similar.
See,
And
it's funny. Yeah, there's also potential because he took over Hulk's book for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if they do some sort of, intergalactic thing with Hulk, because Scargo's kind of batshit and they need to deal with that. Whether he's gonna do that Hulk doesn't have any roles, so the idea that he's taking over for Hulk doesn't really work in their setup. One of my things that's messy about the MCU is they're not real good at showing what the others do when they're not being Avengers.
No, it's
like, we know Sam's got the business and we know Bucky helps him with the business and we know Hawkeye's a dad. Okay. We
with
know
a farm.
some, but what is Bruce Banner? I mean, he's been off planet for a while.
Yeah.
But you see him sort of doing science all the time. But what's he working on?
I mean, it seems like he was just kind of hanging around Tony for a while, and I suspect Tony was kind of funding him.
I think that's why he ate Tony's shit. Like, every time Tony starts getting under skin, he's giving me money. Okay. But
it would make sense.
It's very real. But we know he's researching the 10 rings. But how do you do that all the time?
Yeah.
It's just, what do these people do? Like, Shang-Chi just goes back to parking cars. That's not going to happen. He's internet famous.
Yeah.
They sort of, there's real missed opportunities. But anyway, we've been going for a while and we didn't even touch on the shows we originally wanted to talk about. Stuff like Gilmore Girls. Or Mrs.
I wanted to talk about Amy Sherman Palladino.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we'll do that for another one, because this was actually part of a larger topic that we split up because we knew it was going to go too long because there's just so much to talk about. Yeah. But let's leave it there. This one might be a bit weird, but you guys listening don't mind the weird. This is why you listen to two women talking. And I am Leanna Kersner. I am very weird. That's why I'm tomboy. And we have Song Doug Gixon, who's girly girl who tolerates the weird.
I'm weird in my own way.
Well, yes, but and you know what? It's weird. You shouldn't be, but I'm glad that you are. So this has been Two Women Talking. I won't ask for promotion because we have no idea the particular episode is gonna land. So we'll just sign off, and we shall see you next time. Possibly it's March. By now, I have no idea at this point.
Yeah. All right. Have a great day.